It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the UPikeville's head women's bowling coach, Coach Bobby Brown. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching and college bowling?
Um, Actually, it was from a long history of kind of doing a little baseball coaching and, also coaching kind of like on the side with bowling. Um, it was something I loved to see the excitement when someone learned something new. It was really, really fun for me. Um, we'd spend hours working on different things. And then when I got the opportunity at Morehead State to coach, um, Coach Larry Wilson looked at me and says, "Hey, do you want to help? And you can take the guys for a few years." And I was like, 100% I'm in. So, I got a chance to start there, and 25, 26 years later, I'm still doing it.
Or so what was that experience like going to Morehead State and getting to compete in bowling?
It was awesome for me. I was from originally Ohio, and we moved to Illinois in high school. And I fell in love with Morehead State, the campus, and everything else. Plus, it had its own bowling center on campus that we had access to at any point in time. And the women's team was very, very dominant back in those days for Morehead. And I was one of those guys there, like, I want to be like them. So, like, I would put in the work and everything else. And the teammates and the camaraderie and everything else, it was a great time.
As a player for bowling, what was that experience like getting to bowl for Morehead?
Um, it was one of those things that, you know, nowadays a lot of schools don't recognize bowling as one of the top tier sports. It's always basketball, football, this, that, and the other. But our school kind of recognized us because we had our own facility. Um, the girls were my kind of slash first year of kind of coaching a little bit, won a national title, and that bit me like I'm in. But like as a player, man, it was work. Our season's very, very long, and like balancing school and being ready to compete and all this other stuff, it was hard. And sometimes it would get to a point where, which one comes first? We always say the student comes first, but if we're going to bowl for a national title, yeah, I might have cheated might not have read that chapter very well or something to that effect. I wanted to go compete.
Of course, what was that feeling like getting to put on that bowling uniform for Morehead and getting to represent Morehead State?
Well, for me, it was like chills. It was one of those things that, you know, everybody wishes they could do it. And luckily nowadays there's more schools than there ever has been that offer bowling. But like that first tournament, I was nervous. I I will tell you the truth that, I was looking around, my eyes were so big, I didn't know what I was doing. Luckily, I had great teammates that said, just calm down, it'll be okay. They gave me a few shots, get the nerves out, and then it was time to go to work.
Of course, how was that transition like for you from going from being a player to then getting onto the coaching staff and being the head coach for the men's bowling team?
It was a little bit of a transition because still some of the players that were there were teammates of mine. So like the transition period for me was, don't come in there and try to like lay down groundwork or try to change the culture immediately because that wasn't going to work. The culture was already pretty good. It was more of an interaction from a player coach type deal. So it was like, hey, what do you think here? What the move is, the ball change, whatever else. But once I got past, these kids being like teammates of mine, then it was time to start building on what we needed to do next.
What was that like, obviously, getting to first coach the men's bowling before going to the women's side for Morehead?
Um, So at Moorhead, I was with the guys for most of the time, but the last few years I kind of did both teams, men and women both. Um, the funniest thing is the women want to be treated the same. Like if I do something wrong, most of them say, just tell me. Like don't sit there and come up and say it'll be okay. Tell me the truth, what I do wrong, this, that, and the other. So that was my biggest learning curve is like I always felt like I had to sugarcoat it a little bit or tone myself down a little bit. But the females want it the same way. Like just tell me the truth, lay it out there. So since then, I've been the same way. You're gonna get the truth. You might hate me for a minute, but at the same point in time, I'm speaking the truth to you.
How was that 2000 and 2002 season like going to the national championship?
Um, the so a little bit before that, 1998, Morehead State won the national championship in Madison, Wisconsin. That's when the bug kind of got me pretty good because I was still a player, but helping out kind of the in between role. And then in 2000 when we won it, that was, one of those things that we just, I think we just graduated one of the best players in the world with Kelly Kulick. And in 2000, everybody's like, well, that's going to be hard. And then they stepped up and won it. And then in 2002, man, they just bought in and just went after it. And I believe we beat Wichita State and Buffalo, and it was amazing.
Of course, being a part of that 2000 team that won that championship and being on that coaching staff, what was that like?
Um, Larry Wilson was kind of the head coach at that point in time, so I was the guy in the back, and doing the, you got this, motivational guy, this, that, and the other, and the guys were there too, and it was just exciting for us. So, once we got to see like the girls win, the guys' attitudes changed too, because they're like, I want to do this. I want to bowl for a national championship. I want to be on national TV. I want to do this. So you just saw everything transition and it was like, here we come. Because like in 2003, I believe the guys made the finals and we got beat by Wichita. So we finished second. And like they just got hungry for trying to win a national title. And it was fun.
What was that experience like for you to be a part of that 2002 national championship team?
That team was a hard working team. Like they would put in the work and sometimes we put out our best effort and just we were just close but not close enough. And that week of the national championship, they just had a different look about them. Like coaches say sometimes like you walk into a building and you just know you're going to win. And like we walked into that building and I was like, we're going to win this. Like there's no doubt about it. Like their attitude, the way they held themselves, the way they picked each other up, the way they support each other, like it was just fun to watch.
Of course, what have been some of your coaching experience and your coaching accomplishments at Morehead State?
At Morehead State, I was two-time National Coach of the Year. Um, the guys' team finished second, a couple thirds, a couple national championships. So just a little bit of here, a little bit of there. Since moving on to Pikeville, um, the second year we finished runner-up for NAI championship, and the next year we won it. So I'm one of those guys that, hey, the story. It's like you can go out and play your best and get beat. I don't like to lose. I can get beat anytime, but I don't like to lose. So like winning's one of those things that if we're not walking in the building to compete to win the tournament, I don't want to walk in the building.
What was that transition like for you from leaving your alma mater of Morehead to then coming to UPikeville?
Um, there's a funny story behind that. So when the University of Pikeville, which was used to be called Pikeville College, they contacted us at Moorhead and say, how do we start bowling here? So the guy's name was Ron Dameron, and he contacted us, and we kind of gave him some things to do. And they always used to say, if we're beating Moorhead, we're doing the right things. Ron came in with a gangbuster. Like every 4 years, he won a national title. Like he started the program in 2001 and won a national title in 2004. and they just kept coming. And the funny story is like Ron used to joke around with me, see me at tournaments and say, "Hey, when you gonna come down and take my job?" And the opportunity presented. Ron retired. Um, Me and my wife, my daughter hadn't started school yet. She was very young. My wife was a nurse, and we talked about it. And it's like, if we're going to make a move, this is the perfect time to make the move. So like the stars lined up. We put our house on the market. It sold in 2 weeks. So we just knew it was the right choice for us. And like the way they support bowling at the University of Pikeville, it's undeniable. Like it's one of these sports here, and they treat us like that. So like the transition was very, very smooth, and the good Lord above said, "This is where you need to be." So I've been happy ever since the last 7, 8 years now.
What was that feeling like getting to take over that program from that coach, the legendary coach, and getting to run it?
Um, I won't lie, it was a little nerve-wracking because like everyone knew Ron, like this town knew Ron and everything else, and like they were big shoes to fill. But I felt comfortable with me because like I've had the experience with coaching both sides of you know boys and girls, and knowing that I could change the culture to a place where I wanted it to go, that was the biggest thing ever. And it took a couple years. You had to get through some tough times, but like finishing second in the nation one year and winning the national title the next year isn't too bad of a rough 2 years. But like we had our ups and downs, and we were trying to figure it out. And the major thing is Ron never left me. Like if I had questions, I could call Ron and be like, "Hey, what do you do here?" Or "How does this work here?" Or this, down, the other. So he was always a good contact for me. And Coach Wilson on the guys' side, he was one of those guys too that I could reach out and be like, how does this work here? Because it was a little different coming from, Morehead State, which is a small D1 school, and we were a club sport there, and coming to here where it was a uh, full athletic department sport, and we're an NAI school, so things were a little different. But
What,
the transition was pretty easy.
what was that like, obviously, as you said, coming from Moorhead, which was a club, to then coming to Pikeville, which was a D2 school?
It was one of those things like in the bowling world, I don't look at bowlers from a perspective of Division 1, Division 2, whatever else. Like in the bowling world, we compete against everybody. Like if you want to lace them up, let's just go bowl. And our ITC championships is everyone bowls there. So like for me, it's like, yeah, there is starting to get these categories of like JUCOs and NEI and so forth, so on. But like for me, it's bowling, right? It's if it was University of Pikeville and Alabama had a bowling team, I go down there and battle up Nick Saban if I wanted to. So it to me, bowling's bowling. You have one person up there throwing a shot, and you give them the best advice possible and make them feel confident and believe in themselves, and let's go to let's go to battle.
What was that feeling like for you to get to become and getting announced as the head coach?
It was kind of a scary feeling, to be honest with you. Um, Following Ron Dameron was kind of a big thing. The other thing was is that I just slept 18 years at a previous school. You know, like there was no bad will, there was no nothing. I just packed up my family and went on. And the funniest thing is that my wife was my biggest supporter. Like she understands like when bowling season's on, we pass each other. We don't we don't really see each other and like till the summertime, and then we actually get to be a family a little bit. But that's about 2 months out of the year, and it's like now it's like in a week from Friday I leave for 10 days on a recruiting trip. So like I won't see her for 10 days, and I won't see my daughter. Thank goodness for Zoom and FaceTime and all these other things that I get to see them. But that transition as far as like being announced here, I'm they it was a bigger announcement than my first hire, that's for sure. Because like We had a magazine write up, they had interviews, they had everything else. And like I wasn't good at that. Like they would ask me questions and I'd be like, yes. I didn't know how to like relax and just talk about it. But like it was a nerve-wracking feeling, but like that excitement nerve-wracking feeling. Like I was ready to get going. Like July 1st came, I got hired. I'm like, all right, where's the kids? Let's go.
Of course, what does a typical game day look like for a bowling match?
Whew, that's a good one. So for us, we're called the weekend warriors, right? So like our usual matches go from travel day on Friday, usually after classes, because like academics is first for me. Like I'm proud of my team for their GPA and everything else. They're all dean's list or higher and stuff like that. So, we don't usually leave till after classes get done on Friday. So we travel 5, 6 hours sometimes, further some, shorter some. Um, get checked into the hotel, usually stop on the way, get some food, check into the hotel. And then the next day it was pretty much, that night we'll have a little meeting saying, okay, this is the game plan going in. I'm a firm believer that you don't kind of talk about that the day before. I do it the day before because you do it the day of, it doesn't have a chance to soak in. So I like doing it the night before. Hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going out to win. This is our game plan. This is our strategies, so forth, so on. Get up, get some breakfast, get to the bowling center about an hour beforehand, stretch out, make sure everything's good to go with the equipment, so forth, so on. And then we start bowling. And once we start bowling, I become this guy that's focused in on that one thing for the next 6 to 7 hours. So like my wife doesn't usually travel with me because like she understands like he's not going to pay any attention to anything else. It's right there in front of me.
Of course,
So we get to go ahead.
what does that home game bowling look like?
Well, we don't have any. So we're the road warriors also. So we don't have any home games. We don't have a bowling center big enough to host anything. So even our kind of like home tournament, the Orange and Black, it's in Dayton, Ohio, which is like a 4 hour drive for us. So, even with the home tournament, we're still on the road.
Of course, what challenges do you face when being on the road for all of your competitions?
Time, like managing time. So for me, and I tell my kids this, I tell everybody this, I'm not perfect at that. Like I get so into the season that sometimes I forget to eat. Sometimes it just gets to that. And trying to figure out the balance of family life, uh, having time for yourself a little bit, and being on the road because like I would say that we were one of the most traveled teams in the country. Like our schedule is jam packed. This year we're going to do it a little different because we're going to try to manage that student athlete time because I really do believe mental health is a big deal, especially after the pandemic and stuff like that, of figuring out how to find you again. So, the weekend warriors always on the road type things, it's hard. It's very hard. Without my support system at home, I couldn't do it.
Who are some of the teams that you compete against each week?
Um, the majority we're in the Mid South Conference, so we're in a conference here. A lot of it is regional events. So, like for us, it's like the University of the Cumberlands, we see a lot. Teams out of Kentucky, Midway, um, some of the bigger events you'll see like the Wichita States or the Mount Mercies or some of those things. But we really don't cross paths with most of the NCAA teams until we get to the national championship. So we don't see the Alabama A&Ms or most of the other ones because like travel's expensive nowadays and it's not going to get any cheaper. So, crossing paths with certain schools, you don't really get to see them very often. So like some of the teams I don't get to see very often is like Wichita or Baker University out of Kansas or some of those schools like that.
Of course, what is that like, obviously, getting to coach against some of those big teams like Alabama A&M and Morehead State and other teams like that?
Like I said before, I look at them all the same. Like for me, it's like, you know, as a college bowling coach, there's no defense. Like you can't go up there and trip a kid or do anything different. So there's not much defense. There's only offense. So like for me, it's like if we take care of ourselves, the rest will take care of itself. So like for us, the motto is like it's always about us. We're not scared of anybody. We'll go bowl, do the very best we can, give 110%. And after that, if we need to start working on things, we go back to the lab. We have our own facility here at the University of Pikeville, and we just go back to work and we try to get better every single week.
As a head coach, how do you keep the momentum of your players when doing long competition days that are weeks long?
Um, Trying to, the hardest critic is themselves. Like for me, I'm never really hard on a person, if it's a guy or a girl, whatever else. Like they're going to be hard enough on themselves. Like if a kid comes up and misses a free throw to lose a game, a coach should never put that kid down because he's going to beat himself up for the next years to come. So for me, it's just to tell him that you're going to get another opportunity at this, learn from the first one. And that's what you do in life. You learn from your mistakes and you move on. And I think part of coaching is getting them prepared for life is like, we're not all going to be perfect every single day of our life. We're going to mess up. We're going to learn from our mistakes. We're going to make it best as we can. And we're just keep moving forward. So on those long days, it's like, you're not going to have the greatest day ever. And it's okay because we have a team. It's not an individual stuff. It's a team. So when your best day isn't the best, it's okay. We have someone else that can help you out through that time and just relying on each other. It's like, a lot of people call a college team a sports team, right? I call my group a family. We're a family. We're together all the time. And the thing is like any other family. If you have a brother or sister or even aunts, uncles, mother, dad, whatever, you're going to bicker, you're going to fight, you're going to still love each other, and you're going to say, I'm sorry when you're wrong, and you're just going to move on. Forget it, let's go to forward. And that's how we do it here.
What is that like, obviously having multiple games throughout the series? So, like, let's say game one, your players aren't doing so well, so then they have multiple chances to do better.
Well, for us, it's always about okay, so it's looking forward and never looking backwards. So like if we're struggling the first game, is it the nerve setting? Is it, whatever else? And as a coach, that's your job. You step up in there and you give them confidence when they need confidence. And or if it needs to be a different game plan, like, hey, we got to change zones or do something different. Like having the trust between a player and a coach is a must in everything because like if you guys have that trust, you'll believe and I'll believe and we'll all be just fine.
Of course, for my listeners that don't know, how do you play collegiate bowling?
Well, there's a few different formats, so like for us, it's you have a roster of like eight. I think NCAA has 10 on a team, and you pick five people to compete at one time. Either you're doing traditional games, which is each person bowls their own game, or you do our Baker style, which you take five people and they bowl two frames apiece. So you have your first bowler bowl, they bowl the first and the sixth frame. And then if someone gets confused or lost, or you need to make a sub, you can take one of the people off the bench and put them into your roster or lineup at any point in time.
What is that like, obviously coaching the Red Robin style versus Baker versus your traditional bowling?
I think you have to have a different plan of attacks. So, like, if it's a traditional tournament where total pins is the thing, then you can kind of give a few extra times or a few extra shots to a player to allow them to either A, figure it out or try to work through things. Once you get into like your round robins or your match plays or your this, down, the other, decisions have to come a little bit quicker. And then your execution has to be a little bit better. And you even have to practice it some. Like if you need this shot, for me, it's not about striking all the time. It's just throw a quality shot. If it's a quality shot, we'll take our chances every time.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for the women's bowling program?
The culture, like I said, they're student athletes, right? Like, student comes first. So like if a person's stressed out about an exam or a test or a paper or something like that, okay, miss practice. Like if that's hanging over your head and you're at practice, you're not going to practice good at all. Like it's going to be an awful practice. So go take care of that, and then we'll have time to catch you up. Um, you know, I have this thing where I usually don't tell them no. Like if they say, "Hey, I need to go see a tutor," okay, especially if it's around classes. Hey, get it done. Like get your stuff done. But we also talk about like don't procrastinate. Like we're on the road, and when we're on the road, you probably have 2 hours a weekend to yourself, maybe. That's not sleeping. So like, don't bring homework. Try to get it done in advance. And luckily, with the university here, they're so supportive of all the athletics that if you go in and have the conversation beforehand, say, "Hey, we're going to be gone this week." Yeah, sure, we'll catch it up next week. Or like I always tell my kids, I'm like, go in and say, "Hey, I want to go do this week because we're going to be gone next week," and they'll figure out a way to do it. And it's teaching them how to communicate with each other. So, like for my culture, it's student first. Um, Bring your best every day, just your best effort. It doesn't have to be you're the superstar today. Just bring your effort. Like work hard. I think hard work pays off, and like you just have to come in with a smile. We talk all the time. It's like you could come in and have a bad day, and if you show that bad day to everybody else, it everybody's going to have a bad day. So like we have doors when you walk into the center, and the motto is leave it at the door. You can pick it up when you leave. Just come in, give your best effort, be a good teammate, do the things you're supposed to do, work hard, and everything will be just fine.
Of course, what does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes looking to play collegiate bowling?
Well, the funniest thing is like recruiting has become a very big process as far as like kids nowadays are being proactive. Like they're doing good. Like I'm already recruiting 20 and 24s and fives now. And in bowling, usually it was like, oh, I'm just recruiting the next year or the next year, just, filling the roster here or there. But like kids nowadays have a lot of opportunities to get seen by college coaches. And they're starting to do the process. Like they're starting in their sophomore. I even have some freshmen in high school that are starting this process. And it's usually, hey, like this next week we have a big um, what they call a trade show or a collegiate experience type thing. There's probably 120 schools going to be there. So these kids can walk around, talk to the coaches, get some information. Then they can start looking. And, for me, it's like this: look at your major. What do you want to do? Like, if you want to do sports journalism, or if you want to be a doctor, or if you want to be an engineer, those schools, they're out there and they do offer bowling, but like some schools don't. Like engineering, we don't offer engineering here. If you want to do something medical, University of Pikeville is the place to be. So, picking out your degree track and then start talking to the coaches and asking key questions like, hey, do you give scholarships for bowling? How large is your roster size? What does a normous practice week look like? Just getting the feel of it. And then my thing with recruits, go visit, go see the school, go see the coaches, go see everything you want to see, and just don't decide on the first one. Like go see two or three because then you compare them, right? Oh, I like this about this school. I don't really like that, blah, 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 blah. And then if you need to, go back one more time. Like go meet the team, go see how it works, go talk to the players. Like I tell my kids all the time, like you just be truthful. Like if you don't think I'm a very nice guy, you can tell them that. That's okay. Because there's probably 20 other ones that say he's great, he just pushes us hard. But as far as recruiting goes, reach out to the coaches. Like there's probably thousands and thousands of kids. And like we all have websites, we all have different things that are going on. Well, college tournaments, I'm probably not the greatest person in the world to come talk to at a college tournament because like if you catch me afterwards, I'll talk your ear off. If you catch me during a tournament, I might be I'm doing something different. So, but just go contact coaches. Like, I think I responded with your email in about an hour or two. Like most coaches will respond. And if it takes a little bit, they might be on vacation, they might be away from their computer for a little bit, or something's going on. So just give them some time and they'll respond.
Of course, as a college coach, what are some of the things that you look at when going to these big bowling tournaments?
The biggest thing is the interaction between parents and the athlete. For me, it's like, how you correspond is a conversation piece, is a yelling piece, is it like so forth, so on. And to me, it's like I'm not ever looking at score. I'm looking, do they have the fundamentals? Are they making changes when they need to? Are they doing the little things right? And for me, it's like this. It's like if you're a hard worker, I'm in. Like if you're willing to put in the time, I am too. That's why during the bowling season, me and my wife just pass each other by.
Of course, what does that official visit look like at University of Pikeville for bowling?
So usually our official visits, they start out with a campus tour, um, usually not with me being around or any of the coaching staff. Um, let them to ask questions about the university, let them ask questions about, the dorm life or whatever else they need to do. And they start talking about the financials. And then we'll meet up probably somewhere close to lunchtime, grab a bite of lunch on campus, kind of show them the athletic side of things, like meet our AD, see the physical trainers and stuff like that. And then we take them out to our bowling complex and see the training center and what we have to offer there. And then we'll sit down and talk. Like, they'll probably bowl a little bit and ask questions and so forth, so on. Then I usually get them in front of a few players and let them talk to the players while I talk to mom and dad or whatever else, and let them, ask the questions they want to ask, really. Most of the time they will ask the appropriate questions in front of the coaches. On the other side, they're going to ask the question they really want to know. And that's why I always let them set up with the players.
Of course, as a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen get to put on that University of Pikeville bowling uniform for the first time?
It's exciting for me. My motto is this: my best accomplishment is 5 years after you graduate. So for me, walking across the stage, all these young ladies and men and everything else, that's like winning a national title. It's knowing they put through the work and they're going to be ready for this world when it hits them in the face, and handling adversity and all this stuff. And I always tell them, I was like, my greatest accomplishment is when you're doing great things in 5 years from now. So then I know I did my job as far as being a coach and knowing that they're ready for this world when it gets hard.
What is that like, obviously, getting to see those seniors putting on that bowling uniform and representing University of Pikeville for the last time?
Tears. Like usually most of the time you'll find me crying somewhere. It might be in public and it might be somewhere else, but like when my kids get done, I will give them the biggest hug in the world and tell them how proud I am of them and what they have accomplished. And I think a lot of times we don't look at what we accomplish as much as we should. And it doesn't have to be wins, and it doesn't have to be national titles or awards or anything else. It's like seeing a person from their freshman year to their senior year maybe develop into a leader or something bigger, or giving back to the community more, or just giving their time to others. Like that's the greatest thing ever. And like those seniors, when they leave, they're always a part of my family. Every senior that's ever walked through the doors is, 25 years of this. I still keep in contact with the kids I first coached. And like I get invited to their weddings and I get everything else. And it's like I still remember the days they left, and it would usually be hugs and tears and everything else. And it's just you commit so much time and effort to each other. That's what it's all about.
What is that like, obviously, seeing those players go on and going into professional bowling and playing professionally?
It's exciting for me. But for me, it's like I'm just a step, right? You start out in high school, it's a step into college. This is a step into maybe a professional career. This is a step to their next level. And I'm always a phone call away. Like someone will still call me today, like, what am I doing wrong? Like, here's a video. What can you help me? You know, but at the same time, I always tell them, I'm like, as a coach, there's no manual to bowling, right? That anybody can do it. Size doesn't matter. You don't have to be a athletic 6'5" wing that can shoot 3-pointers like that. That's not a skill set for us. So like, you know, being able to take everyone's advice, like listen, see if it helps. Because if you're in a rut or you're doing something wrong, more eyes to see it, the better.
What are some of your future plans for the UPikeville women's bowling program?
Win national titles. you know, um, but one of our passions with the area down here is I want to grow bowling. Bowling's one of those sports that's given so much to me. I want to give back to bowling. So like if I can help a young kid that's 5 or 6 and they just want to get better at bowling, I'm not going to charge them a nickel and let's just go bowl. And it's like my daughter's 11. I've never coached her a day in my life. I want her to have fun with it because bowling was such a fun sport for me. It was the, camaraderie, it was the, having people behind you going into a match, all these things for me. And like I just want to give back to the sport that's given me so much in my life and grow the sport of bowling. Because like it's if you ever come to a college bowling tournament, and I'm going to invite you to one sometime, you won't believe how loud a bowling center can get.
What advice would you give those future people that are looking to play college bowling in college?
My advice to them is just keep developing, keep learning. Like the sport of bowling changes so frequently. Like as a coach, like I use my resources till this day, and I study this sport. I keep up with it. Between the technology and bowling balls to, how new generations are learning, like visual learning and doing more things that way. It's just listen, take every piece of advice you can, and have fun with it. Like this is the greatest time of your life in high school and college. Man, it's fun. And, being able to go compete at a collegiate level, no matter what the level is, everyone doesn't get to do that. So enjoy it. Like just, know that the hard work will pay off. Some days you don't want to go to the gym and work out. Some days you don't want to go practice. But at the same point in time, if you do those little things, it'll make you better. And even a bad day of practice is still a good day.
What advice would you give those college bowlers looking to go play professional bowling after their career?
Just be ready to take the next step. It's like you come from high school bowling, you go to college, it's different. It's a new avenue, things are different, the competition's different, everything's a little different. So once you go to college professional, it's the same process. It's different. So it's like being able to learn or get around some people that can help you or whatever else, because it is a transition. And like don't get discouraged. Like if you go out your first year professionally and let's say you don't compete very well, take it as a learning year, go back out, learn something new, try it again. The major thing is like as long as you're willing to work and get the right information, it'll help you out.
What advice would you give those college bowlers looking to get into college coaching after their playing career?
Do it for the right reason would be my suggestion. Is like college bowling coaches aren't going to make a ton of money. Like that's just the way it is. You're going to have a passion for it and a love for it to do this. And if you're going to do it right, you're going to sacrifice a lot of things. And the things that you're going to sacrifice, it will pay off in the long run. But figure out the balance. Do better than I did. Like figure out the balance between family and yourself and your job and this, that, and the other. But don't treat it like a job. If you treat it like a job, it won't be fun for you.
What advice would you give those head coaches looking to become head coaches in college bowling?
Be ready to lean on people. Um, I had great mentors. Like I had some of the best mentors ever, and that I was able to contact them when I had questions. I'm one of those guys that will answer anything you want to know. Like if a coach comes and calls me and says, "Hey, what would you do in this situation?" I'll give you my opinion. Like I'm not scared to share my information. There's no secrets here, right? Because like for me, it's just having the right people around you and being supported by a lot of people makes it easier to make that transition to a head coaching job.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find the UPikeville Women's Bowling at on social media along with you?
Well, as far as social media goes, I have no idea. My assistant coach does all that stuff. So I know we're on Facebook at the University of Pikeville Women's Bowling. You can go to upikebears.com, which is our athletic page to find out more information there. I believe we have an Instagram. I'm not sure. Um, but I kind of got out of the social media era a long time ago. So I turned that over to the younger group. And, I even like if kids are interested in the social media marketing or things like that, I turn them loose on our stuff. Give them experience. Let's see what they do.
Thank you again, Coach Bobby Brown, for your interview and best luck in your future with the UPikeville head women's bowling coach.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook, on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Bobby Brown, for your interview and best luck in your future with the University of Pikeville's women's bowling program.
Thank you so much.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.